Welcome to Down to Earth Astrology and Primal Girl Wellness. This is Ms. Jenny and I am your astrologer. Today's video is Astrology Investigates the missing person case of Lina Kihl. Lina Kihl is a 3-year-old who has disappeared or vanished into thin air from a playground in her apartment complex. I only found out about it this morning about 6 a.m. and it really bothered me enough that I decided to try and take a look and see if I could find any information as well, because it's not letting me rest. And I have some time to kill. So there are a couple of caveats I want to give you guys before we get into this. The first thing is that I am not a master of Horary. I'm certainly not I am not expert enough to teach this to other people. And that means that this, as we do this chart or these charts, this is a learning process for me. And, like all things, until proven otherwise, it's pure speculation. I could be completely wrong, so don't get too excited or alarmed or anything like that. Which is also why I'm not sending it off to the San Antonio Police Department to have them go, rushing out to look at the stuff based on what I told them, because I don't want to get people worked up for nothing. I could be wrong. But I'm not afraid to tell you that, dear viewers, because we are in this together. We are learning this together. So there's that. And the other thing is that there are people who are far, far better at this than I am. I don't know if they do this for law enforcement or for people trying to solve cold cases. I don't know. So, and, in all fairness, I don't know many law enforcement personnel that would admit to the public that they're using psychics and astrologers to solve cases. Yeah, that would look really good. So maybe it's happening, maybe it's not, but I do know there are people who are probably better at this than I am that are or should be doing this with far greater accuracy than I'm going to get, I think. And the last thing I just want to say is I've done this before a couple of times. I do a lot of stuff for missing objects, mostly because I'm constantly losing stuff. But also, too, I've done this on a few times for missing people. And the problem with doing this for missing people or persons is that, one, you either don't get any reliable or thorough feedback about where the person actually turned up, because there's typically more going on than they want anyone else to know about. There's some stories there about a woman or a female who's a closet lesbian and is underage and was seeing her older female lover and didn't want her family to find out, yada, yada, yada. So there was a lot of information I was not given when she finally turned up. But suffice it to say, it was pretty clear that there was, yeah, anyway. So, and no judgment, but I would like to know so I can make my own notes so I can get better at this. The other thing is that when it's not that, I have literally had people who have who have insulted me and abused me before the person was even discovered to be found, and they were, and pretty much in exactly the place where I said they were going to be. But they don't know that, and between the time you post this and the time the person turns up and validates that you were correct, it's just a whole lot of gratuitous abuse and insult. It's not necessary. So it doesn't make it, I'm not getting paid for this, so it doesn't make it worthwhile to expose myself to this kind of stupidity from people, right? And again, at the end of the day, I could be wrong. So nobody wants to get involved in getting someone's hopes up and then turn out to be wrong. So that's my caveat for this video. Now let's take a look. This is Lina Kihl. Isn't she beautiful? She's 3 years old. Now, the exact date of birth is unknown. Not sure what the record keeping process is for births in Afghanistan. And it's not specific to Afghanistan. There are a lot of countries outside of here that have very different ideas about record keeping for births. And when, the date of birth occurs. I believe in South Korea, for a long time, the birthday was considered date of estimated conception, not the day you came out of your mother. And in some places, women or females are so valued so little that their birth records, aside from the year they were born, are not really kept, because why, right? Do you have the birth data for the the family cow? No, probably not. Kind of thing. Oh my God. Anyway. And some places just don't keep those kinds of records. It's just a different kind of world, that they're living in. So we don't know what day she was born. We don't know the month or day, which is kind of sad. We do know, however, that she was born in 2021 in Afghanistan. Now, according to the reports that we're getting in the media and from the police department, she disappeared from a populated playground. She was not on this playground by herself. There were other children there. And the playground was located inside her apartment complex, and she disappeared on December 20th, sometime between 5 and 7 p.m. The mother apparently went inside for something, came back out, and her daughter was gone. And before you judge the mother and say, well, you shouldn't have left your child out there, blah, 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 anybody who has ever had little kids, especially the kids between the ages of, I don't know, 3 and 9, holy cow, like you blink your eye, you turn your back for a minute, and you turn around again, and pandemonium has broken loose. Like, these kids move faster than greased lightning. So literally, it doesn't matter if the mother had turned her back for 60 seconds or she'd been gone for an hour. Like, children are mobile and they move, and the little ones move fast. Holy cow. So, you know, there's that. And also, too, she was on a populated playground with other kids. She wasn't there by herself. So it's not like her mother had reason to be concerned. And in this particular apartment complex, it's heavily populated by Afghani refugees. So there's a very strong sense of community and family in the population here. And also, when you are part of a small group that is considered the outsider in a hostile area, I mean, come on, you're an Afghanistan refugee in Texas. Texas doesn't like anybody that's not white and Texan. So they're all out there together. She doesn't have a reason to think that there would be a problem, right? So don't jump on the mom about this, because it's really not. It's not something any of us would also not have done, right? We just need to run the house or something, kind of thing. All right, anyway, so here's the deal with the family. Her family came here with her as Afghanistan refugees seeking safety from their collapsed government and the reinstated rule of the Taliban, which the Taliban is also known to be a threat to the safety of women and children because of their religious dictates. Yeah, and now they find themselves dealing with this. That's pretty damn heartbreaking. Okay, so let's get on with the charts. Okay, now we're going to get some of the fun parts. Right, so we've got two charts here, and let me explain what's happening here. So on the left side of the chart, left, I'm not sure which is left for you, we have the chart set up for this morning when I was thinking about this, and I asked the Horary chart, where's Lina Kihl? I asked the question. And this is the chart I got. On the other chart with the yellow highlighting, this is the police report for Lina's disappearance. So here are a couple of things to consider. One of the things that happens, because I actually worked for a 911 center briefly, is that the time of the police report or the 911 call will give you the most clear and accurate information when you're asking questions like this for missing persons reports. There was a missing person call for an elderly person in the middle of the night once when I was working, and I did the chart for the time the call came in. And I distinctly remember, and this is when I was first learning Horary, and I distinctly remember that it looked like the person was heading like east or south, or it looks like there were, something, through woods, like there's like an old church nearby and this and the other thing, and they've had like a couple of hours, or that was going to be the end of it, and something about water, like they were heading into or near water. I don't remember the details now, but there were some really specific points that came up when I was looking at this thing, and they, within a couple of hours, did find the person that was missing, and it was the older person who had apparently dementia had walked out of their house. They found the person waist deep in a stream or a river. I mean, this person was, if they hadn't found them when they did, this person would have drowned. And it was through woods, and it was in the cardinal direction, east, west, north, south, whatever it was that I thought it was, and that sort of stuff. It was actually pretty impressive, really impressive. I have not had that kind of luck with requests for locating missing people without the 911 call or police report time like I did then, and that kind of spooked my supervisor at the time. We never really talked about it after that. So that's a thing. So on the right side where the yellow highlighter is, like what you're going to see right over here, this is when the official police report was made for Lina's disappearance. So I would use this as the most accurate chart. Now, for the other chart, right, over here, the time when I asked the question this morning, this is where it gets a little weird, and this is where we run into problems online. So if you go online, typically you'll see dozens and dozens of people who are frequently throwing out questions for Horary, right? Will my boyfriend come back to me? Where is my camera? Where is my aunt? La 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 la. Will I get the job? Will we sell a house? And there's nothing wrong with the questions. There's nothing wrong with questions. The problem is, when you do a Horary chart, ideally, it is intended, my understanding is that it is intended to be, one, it has to be a serious and urgent question. It has to have actual meaning and value to you. The other is that it's based on a querent, the person asking the question, and an singular astrologer. So when people go online and they, shotgun technique, throw that question out there to like 26 groups or 80,000 people, you're asking 80,000 people this question. And based on Horary rules, the idea is that the astrologer sets up the chart based on the time they receive the question. So if you're asking me this question right now, when I set this chart up, I set the chart up for right now where I'm located, and that's the oracle chart that we use. That's the astrology chart that we use that should give us an answer one way or the other. You don't get that when you shotgun spray the question all over the internet and you ask 100,000 people, right? Because then you've got 100 people in 100 different places at, multiple time zones. Like, which one's going to be the correct chart? And honestly, how serious is it if you're asking 100 people at the same time? The other thing is sometimes you'll see is where the person will ask the question for themselves, and then they'll put it out there and they'll ask other people to read the chart, right? So like, I'll ask the question right now, where is Lina Kihl? And I've got a chart set up based on time and location of myself as I ask myself this question. Now, if I put this out and I get a bunch of other astrologers to look at it online, and I've got 20 of them looking at it from all different places in the world, because it's the internet, the question then becomes like, how do we read this chart? Because it's no longer me asking myself the question, it's me asking 20 other people a question. And if that's the case, shouldn't the chart be set up for where they're at, but they're all in 20 different locations? Yeah, it gets a little weird. So I'm not a fan of doing charts that are tossed out there to internet groups and online and stuff like that. And for that reason, I've yet to see an accurate outcome from these things. And it's probably for those reasons. Horary has very, very specific rules. Like, it is absolute, no joke. There is no hedging and fluffing it to make it fit. You can't goose a chart with Horary. You're either right or you're wrong, which is one of the things I love about Horary, right? Because it's not like a natal astrology chart where I see these people goose charts like, oh, well, you're so independent. Of course you can't settle down because you're a Sagittarius. No, that's not at all, because there are plenty of Sagittarius who are able to settle down and keep commitments and have responsibilities. You, on the other hand, you're commitment phobic. But when you're doing astrology and natal charts, you can absolutely like twist and goose a chart to make it fit your interpretation, no matter how off you are. But with a Horary, man, you're either right or you're wrong. There is no in between. It was where you said it would be or it was not. Which is one of the beautiful things I love about astrology, because it really keeps you humble. It really keeps you humble because Horary does not care about your feelings. You either got it or you didn't. Okay? All right, now let's get on with the charts. So I'm going to use both of them because I think they're both useful, and we'll talk about why in a second. Oh, good heavens. I'm so tired of technology. Okay, so this chart, I asked the question on December 29, 2021 at 7:02 a.m. when I first woke up this morning, or after I first woke up, because it wouldn't let me rest. So with this chart, some of the things we should look at first and pay attention to is that technically in this chart, there's a stricture against judgment because we've got less than 3 degrees on the ascendant. Now, they say that you can read a chart with less than 3 degrees rising if it is personally and deeply meaningful. There's a couple of exceptions that they make for this. But as a general rule, if it's not personally meaningful and deeply valuable to you or urgent as a question, you're not likely to get a good answer. The other thing is with 3 degrees or less rising, it's an indication that the question is premature. There's information here you don't have yet, or that you've overlooked. There's more here than you are aware of, so the question is not correctly formed. And I thought that was a little odd until I realized that we do actually have in the press, there's one of the news articles, they put down the time of the police report. And ideally, when you're doing Horary charts, especially for missing people, you want the time of the police report or the 911 call, because that will give you your most clear and accurate information. One of the challenges with Horary is, how we set these things up, right? And I'll tell you a story about why the time of a 911 call or police report is important. There was a time briefly when I worked for a 911 call center, and we had a missing person report come in. It was an elderly person with dementia. And just because I had time on my hands between calls, I was doing a chart for it. And the chart, and I wrote the notes down. Chart said, the person would be heading in this direction. It looks like a body of water or near water, some woods, old church. Sorry. And some other things. And they had like a span of a couple of hours to find this person. It was going to be too late. Like they weren't going to find them at all. Or it'd be almost impossible to find them. Well, they did find the person a couple of hours later, and the person did, in fact, pass through woods to get where they were, and where they found them was waist deep in the river, heading deeper into the river. So literally, if they hadn't found them right then, it would have been too late. And I had shown my supervisor this, and they were kind of freaked out. We never really talked about it again. But I've never had that kind of result from questions about missing people based on anything else with, the time they ask me the question or anything like that. So the best, most accurate charts are always going to come from police reports, time of police report, or official police report, or 911 call. And, the other thing is when you're dealing with, random people and, especially missing people, people often ask multiple people this question, and ideally astrology charts set up to be asked one time with one person, because kind of like Xerox copies, the more you Xerox away, the more cloudy and diffuse and hard to read it gets, and the less accurate and clear the picture becomes. So there's that. Okay, so assuming that we can read this chart, and I will try not to erase my audio this time, and it is a valid chart. We can get some information. Let's take a look at what we're dealing with. Now, the first thing is I'm asking the question of myself, so I'm thinking that the 7th house is going to be Lina, right? And the 7th house is Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. So Lina now becomes the moon. In Horary, the moon also represents the lost object or lost person. So the two of them being the same thing makes life a lot easier right now. So Lina is the moon in Scorpio, which is not great. And the reason is this: the moon is at its weakest, or its fall, it's debilitated, handicapped, literally handicapped at the knees in the sign of Scorpio. So when the moon is in Scorpio ruling Lina, it gives a description of somebody who is at a disadvantage, a serious disadvantage, which we kind of know. She's 3 years old. She doesn't have a lot of power in any of her situations. And it sounds like she's in an area that's completely foreign to her, which we're going to talk about in a second. So there's a lot here that puts her at a great disadvantage, and that makes sense in terms of a description. Now, the good news is that with the moon at the top of the chart in the cardinal house, in the 10th house, it means that she's visible, she's nearby, she's in the immediate area, and she can be found. Or at least she's in the immediate area. So one of the things that they look at is, the first thing is you look for arguments for recovery. Can the person or thing be found? Because some things are just not going to be found. So with that, you look for the moon and the sun. Do the moon and the sun have a positive sort of relationship? They do. As a matter of fact, the moon has just moved away from the sun by 1 degree, suggesting, if I'm reading this correctly, that they may have actually crossed paths or walked past her, or something that would have put her in direct contact with her, like within the last 24 hours. Now, the other thing that they say that is an indication of recovery is the part of fortune, right? And the part of fortune is, in fact, applying to the moon. So, and it's with Jupiter, which is planet of luck and blessings and protection. So this is separated by about 7, so we're looking at 7 days or 7 weeks. My timing is not perfect here. Let's hope it's 7 days, not 7 weeks. However, we are on day 9, so this pushes that timeline out a little bit more. So it is entirely possible, and very likely that she's going to be found, and she's not going to be that far away. The thing that I find interesting here is that I from what I'm seeing, it looks like she's actually in the nearby area. She's not that far away. Now, and that's if we use the 7th house. Now, if we use the 5th house, because 5th house is children, right? If we use the 5th house as ruler, let me read some of this stuff. The 5th house is Venus, and Venus is with Mercury and Pluto, right? Again, in an angular cardinal house. So she is right there in the immediate area. She didn't get that far. With Venus and Mercury and Pluto together like this, one of the things that I would also think or suggest is that she is with other children. She was lured in or away from the sight line of other people using other children or because of other children, and she's currently with other children. So wherever she's at, there are other children there. The other thing is with Pluto there is the very real possibility that she is hidden, right? Well, we know she's being held against her will because I'm sure she'd want to get home by now. But she is deliberately being hidden or obfuscated, right? Kept from view, which makes all kinds of sense because nobody's seen her in 9 days so far. So there's that. Now, with Venus, Mercury, and Pluto together like this, and also making a sextile to Neptune in the second with the third, again, she's in the immediate area, she's nearby. There is the possibility that the person who got her may have been trying to make a profit off of her, which doesn't, I don't understand how that works, and that doesn't sound good. But that is a possibility as well. Now, the thing about it is, with her moon, I'm going to use different color. Oh, come here, come here. There we go. Her moon opposes Uranus, and these both set up a T-square to Saturn in the second, right? Now, Saturn rules this first house, okay? So if Lina is, in fact, Cancer, ruled by the moon, if we use the 7th house, right, she's here, that means that this first house is ruled by Saturn, which would be the person who has her or took her. Now, Saturn setting up a T-square like this with Moon and Uranus would indicate, one, she's in a tremendous amount of distress around this person. And the other, though, is with that Saturn, this first house ruler in the second, again, this business about trying to make a profit off of her somehow. Now, and that's not a happy thought, I know. Now, here's the good news, though, right? If that is the case, it is also probable because this Moon, Uranus, right, Saturn T-square, this Moon, which is Lina, sets up a square to that Saturn in that second house, which also suggests, and remember, this second house is ruled by Uranus, this also suggests that if they were trying to make a profit, they're failing at it badly. So whatever it was that they had in their mind is not happening. It did not go through. So thank God for that, right? I can't even imagine what anybody would be. Oh my God. Literally, there's all sorts of possibilities and none of them are good. So the good news is that probably that whatever those plans were, they fell through. So there's that. So the chances of recovery are good. She is in the immediate area, and I'm going to say east. I think the last report they were looking north and west, but I'm telling you, I think they're east, I think she is east, and she's in the immediate area, and she's in a neighborhood that's different from hers, right? Or an environment that's completely alien and foreign to hers. And the reason I say that is because they say to look at the 4th house for the physical environment, right? Where the object or person might be. If that is the case, that means that Mars would rule that physical environment, if I'm reading this correctly, and Mars is in the 11th house. So Mars in the 11th house and in Sagittarius suggests that it's near wooded or open areas, right? Like open stretches of land. Things that are wild and untamed, not cultivated, not necessarily a suburb, but not even if it is a suburb, the suburb or neighborhood does not sit against another suburb. It sits up against woods or open land that hasn't been developed yet. And the other thing is that with Mars in the 11th, it's going to suggest, and it's in Sagittarius, it's going to suggest foreigners or things that are foreign to her. So she would not be inside an Afghani community. She would not be inside a Muslim community. She would be inside of or surrounded by an environment that is completely alien or foreign to her natural environment, which is Muslim Afghani. And I understand Afghanistan's on the other side of the world, but remember, she's here in an Afghani community in Texas. So outside of that neighborhood, that community, that tight-knit community, like she's somewhere else removed from that in so many ways to describe it. Whew. So that's what I got for the chart I asked myself this morning. And again, I could be completely wrong because, 100 reasons. So let's take a look at what happens when we look at the chart for the time of the police report. Okay, so this is the chart for the time of the police report. Now, she was officially reported missing on December 20th, 2001 at 7:15 p.m. There are no strictures against judgment in this chart. Now, the issues in interpretation here is that we're not looking at a standard Horary chart now, right? Because it's the time of the police report, not the time a person asks a question. Although, in theory, the person is asking the question of the police department, where is my child? So with that said, the rulerships and the rules about who's asking the question and other things that go with Horary are not as clear or reliable at this point. So we're guessing. We are guessing. So again, in this case, with a police report, we're asking about a child, right? So the child is here, which is Mars, again, with that Scorpio, right? Because we had Moon and Scorpio in the last chart. Now, what's interesting is that the moon, which again also rules the missing, right? The moon is here on the ascendant, and it's only a couple of degrees away from the ascendant. So my first thought when I look at this is that she is A, nearby, she's in the immediate area, but B, she's near or on the other side of a boundary line. So a boundary line is anything that's a geographical or physical divider. So it could be anything from a state line to a creek to a river to a path to a fence. To, in this case, if you looked at the map and you look east of where they found her, there's a highway east of where she was lost or where she disappeared. So my guess is she's on the other side of that highway. Which would still be the immediate area, or could be the immediate area. So that's what I'm thinking. And also, this is all east in this direction. This is all east and slightly north, but mostly due east. So I would look due east and slightly north of where she was last seen. Now, the moon also seeing that Venus-Pluto comes back again, right? So clearly there's some nefarious ill will going on here. Like this is not some crazy Captain Crazy Pants abducting children because she couldn't have one of her own. She wants a baby. Like it's not that kind of weirdness going on. I think this is some sinister implications here, and I don't like it because Pluto's involved. Venus and Pluto are involved. This is the underground. This is profit. This is money. There's a whole lot of ugliness, right? And again, Pluto rules that fifth house of children, right? So we are looking at the abduction, Venus-Pluto, because Pluto rules the underworld and he did abduct Persephone. So there's a lot of symbology going on here. It is tied in with this moon, which is in the 12th house or hidden house, but the hidden house in this case and the moon is in the immediate area, literally almost right behind you. So it's literally right under your nose behind you, as it were, if your nose were behind you. And the fifth house rulership, which is Pluto, is there on an angle. And again, these are all angular houses. That child is right there, right there. She's not that far away. So that's good because it'll make it easier to find. It's bad because why haven't they found her before now? And the reason they haven't found her before now is because she's hidden inside something. My suspicion is she's hidden inside a building or a structure. And quite possibly the building or structure of someone who looks very normal and trustworthy and respectable. And with the other chart, I forgot to mention, with the other chart, there is Pallas Athene was involved. So there's a very distinct possibility that weapons or weaponry is either in the building or residence or near it, like a gun shop, right? Or what do they call it, where they make firearms and ammunition? But it would be in or near the location she's currently at based on the other chart. Now in this chart, again, if we go to the fourth house, let's see if it says something the same or different, right? The fourth house is Libra. Venus, see, look at this, Venus and Pluto. Venus rules that fourth house, which gives us some suggestion of the physical environment she's finding herself in. Venus and Pluto in Capricorn. Capricorn rules buildings and structures, although with Capricorn, it's not necessarily an apartment building, right? And this is important to know. Capricorn rules solitary standing things. So this would be a physical structure that stands on its own, that is not part of a communal type of building. So it's like the difference between an apartment building or condominiums versus a freestanding house or an RV, a recreational vehicle. The condominiums and the apartment complexes are units joined together inside of a physical structure that houses all of them together. So they're all part of a building. RVs and freestanding houses, on the other hand, are freestanding structures that are not shared by other occupants, right? So it's, you know, the primary group it has residence in an RV. The primary group has residence in a freestanding house, and that's it. They don't share the external structure with other people. So what this also rules out, because Pluto rules storage and things that are hidden or buried, so because it's in Capricorn, which is business, so you would think maybe she's in a storage unit, right? Because that's possible. In this particular case, I don't think so, because Pluto is there, and Pluto is very selfish. And Venus makes it nice and homey, so it's not a storage unit she's being kept in. This looks like actually a home, a freestanding residence of some sort. And again, arguments for recovery. Will she be found? Well, the moon is near an angle. That's a good thing, right? Does the moon have any relationship to the sun? No, it does not. Does the moon have any relationship to the part of fortune? Yeah, it's kind of wide. Kind of wide. Possible, but kind of wide. The moon does have a relationship to Neptune, which is not, that's not really giving us the answer that we're looking for here, right? The only thing we have that looks like a real strong indication for recovery is the fact that the moon is angular and it's in its rulership right here. So we know she's in a nearby immediate area and she's going to be found. And she's inside a building, a freestanding building that's meant to house primary occupants, not an external structure that houses multiple primary occupants. Okay, and what else do we have here? So she is, well, this is the 911 call, so she is going to be the moon and she's going to be the 5th house. So Mars and Pluto are going to be her rulers. Moon, 1925, 6. So on day 6, there would have been a problem, which nobody wants to hear about. And I'm not completely sure they didn't drug her. I don't know what kind of drugs you would give a child to make her docile, to quietly take her away from a public place, but it looks like they drugged her. So Mars and the vertex together, Mars and the vertex, sextile Saturn, 7th house, and Jupiter is going to move into Pisces, squaring it. And again, it looks like, yeah, see, it looks like there was some intention that she was abducted with an intention. It wasn't, the intention was not to keep her. The intention was to do something else, or to give her to somebody else, as it were. But it's going to be obstructed. It's thwarted. It's not. It's going to fall through. It was not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Okay, so that's all I have for that. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. And this is why I don't do this for people, because people want specific answers. They want you to be Sylvia Brown and give them license plate numbers and names and all that sort of stuff. So if we use the 7th house as the people who took her, right, Saturn becomes the ruler of the 7th house. So again, Saturn is in Aquarius, right, which would indicate people who are very different from ourselves. So the person in this case would definitely not be, or at least I don't think, because we're talking about somebody very different, would not be Afghanistan. They would not be an Afghani, and not from the local community. Certainly nearby, but not a member of their community. So I don't think it's anyone she knew. Also, too, Saturn, if this is them, Saturn rules them, and it squares Uranus. And with Saturn squaring Uranus, again, there's, you know, Captain Crazy Pants at large. So there's a lot of imbalance here, and also the possibility of a history of criminal activity or problematic behavior. Let's put it that way. There's a history of problematic behavior with this individual. And also, too, because it is Aquarius, this is not, I don't think this is one person. I think there are multiple people involved here. But that does not necessarily mean that there are multiple adults. So again, I really believe that there were children used to facilitate this. Okay. And that's that. And here, we're going to finish this with a quick note about why I don't generally do this or offer this freely to people at large anymore. So on Twitter, back this summer, this is an example, there was a missing person alert for this gentleman who had been reported missing, and he was all over the place, right? All over the place. So I'm like, wow, this must be really serious. So let's take a look. So I decided to try my hand to see if I could figure out where he was. This is what I wrote and the response that I got from some rando person before the man even turned up. Why would you come up with some bullshit like this when these people are trying to find their loved ones? This helps absolutely no one. Because, I literally only just found out about it and they haven't found me yet. So we haven't proved that I'm right or wrong yet. Could you maybe not yell at me, lady? Who are you anyway, right? Yeah. So then the man was found. Unfortunately, he was found, I believe he was found dead, but he was found June 5th. The thing was posted June 3rd or 4th, and he turned up June 5th. And I found that later in a news article because I went back to randomly search for it because no one in their embarrassment about yelling at me like a drunk in a bar would update the thing and admit I was right. And I tried to find the original news article that indicated where he was found, and he was found pretty much in the direction and vicinity that I thought he was going to be found in. Of course, now because the news article is so old, that all that stuff is gone, because news and obituaries tend to lose their value very quickly. So I can't find the original article with all the details on it, but I was really close with a lot of information, which I'm very pleased about, thank God. Nothing's worse than the embarrassment of being wrong and the humiliating embarrassment of being wrong about stuff like this, because nobody wants to upset people, especially when you're supposed to be doing this for a living. But he was found. He was found in the general area I thought he would be found. If anybody can find the original news article with that information to post it, that would be great because I'd like to have it. I should have kept a copy of it. But that was the end of that. And it's because of these things that I don't do this publicly or for other people, because I'm not interested in getting yelled at by random strangers on the internet because, they got an axe to grind or whatever. Oh, Lord. So that's also why I'm not sending this off to the San Antonio Police Department. So let's all watch this case. If you get an update, please post it below because I may not necessarily get it in the same time frame that you do. It may be months before I go back and look at this because I'm busy doing other things. And if they do in fact find her, and if this helps them find her sooner rather than later, it turns out to be accurate and helpful, San Antonio Police Department and others, you're more than welcome to send me the reward for helping to find her because my aunt desperately needs a car and I would like to take a proper Horary course so I can get much better at this and help other people for free. All right. All right, so let's all put our thoughts and prayers as she gets found, and whoever's responsible for this, because this is not the first time they've done this, this puts an end to that. All right, talk to you guys later. So this is just a little bonus for those of you who like cards and card reading, crystal balls, and all this sort of stuff. This is what we get when we ask, where is Lina? So the first thing that we're seeing right here is, again, it looks like profit motivations for abducting the child, which, again, doesn't make any sense and doesn't sound good. But also, too, it looks like, again, there was an obstacle or a hindrance. Something blocked the way from this, whatever they were intending to be completed or go through. And it looks like a meeting of some sort with someone. So again, there are multiple people involved, but I think if the cards are reading correctly, she has been abducted. There was a profit motivation involved in this, but whatever was intended did not go through. And they are lower tier or lower rung of players. So there's someone above them that they are meeting with, or who passes judgment on them. So that's not, they are literally a peg or a rung in the wall that leads to the next one, which is higher up and covers a much more broad area. So that's pretty damning right there. Also, it looks like there is a sense of futility or abandonment, and also a lot of effort and work being put in and not even really knowing what the hell they're doing now. So they may have literally bit off more than they can chew and gotten themselves involved in something that they don't know how to extricate themselves from. So I suspect this giant manhunt for her has really thrown a monkey wrench in their plans, as well as their ability to remove themselves from the situation. Give it about 3 days. Give it about 3 days, and Lina is going to turn up. Somebody is going to either tell on them, or she's going to be dropped off and returned, as it were. But we've got about 72 hours, and she should turn up, according to this. The difference between astrology as an oracle and psychic readings using tarot cards, crystal balls, and clairvoyance is the difference in the type of details and flow of information that you get. An example to follow. So the next question we asked is, who has abducted Lina? And it would appear that whoever's abducted Lina is doing this because they have a debt that needs to be paid. So this literally could be amateur hour from beginning to end, and it could be something that's being done as an act of desperation to repay a debt that they owe at some level or in some way, which is interesting. But again, this is all speculation, so we'll find out later in the wash, maybe, depending on what we get access to in terms of information. And so, of course, I want to know, because this is a thought that occurred to me, has Lina been abducted as part of a child trafficking ring or child pornography or some sort of organized crime effort or demand for small children, which is always, a terrifying proposition, right? So it would appear that at some level, this is where it would have gone. And it looks like people will be arrested. So they'll find her and they'll find the people who are responsible for it, certainly arrest them. But the problem is, I feel like it looks like here that they're not going to get the people ultimately that they need to get that are higher up in the organization, but it's certainly going to shake up a lot of things that have been in place for a while. Again, this is not new. This is not something they've just only done. They're just not really good at it. And, with all things, it could be wrong, but one of the things that I get when we look at this is I'm getting the smell of something that doesn't smell natural or normal. So it's almost like burning wood or plastic, but it's not. It's a different kind of smell. So it's an off-gassing or a burning smell of something that's not typical or normal. Also, I get a lot of loud banging noises. So I don't know if it's a gun range nearby or where people shoot in the woods nearby, or if it's an old factory with big, heavy, clunky machinery, but there's a lot of loud banging nearby. And dirty, just really, really dirty, really dirty. She's not well. And it looks like there are 2 burns or scratch marks or cut marks on her. It looks like burns, 2 long welts. They look like welts. And her stomach's been upset for a long time. I don't think she's eating either. They're not treating her well. And dogs. There are dogs on the property. And the dogs are how they keep people out and how they keep the children in. Yeah. Okay, so this is getting a little disturbing to look at. Again, this is all speculation. Now I'm feeling kind of bad that we're doing this because we don't know that any of this is true, and I don't want to alarm people. But certainly, I just added this just because I know some of you enjoy this. So let's see how this goes. Keep me updated. I am completely and absolutely prepared to be wrong. So hopefully I am wrong, and I am wrong about all this, and she will turn out happy, healthy, and whole, and just having been hiding out in a neighbor's house who didn't realize she was missing because they never watched the news or answered the door. We'll see. All right. God bless. Bye.